So, what if I told you that one of the most mature, battle-tested manuals on servant leadership isn't, a Harvard Business Review article?
Right.
And it's not a viral TED Talk or some general's military memoir either. What if I told you it is actually a deck list for a 20-year-old children's card game?
I mean, it sounds completely absurd on its face. We're so used to finding leadership advice in corporate boardrooms, not in, like, stacks of cardboard.
Exactly.
But the source document we're analyzing today is this highly specific PDF dated April 21st, 2026. It's simply titled Bannock Yugioh Deck.pdf. And beneath the surface of the game mechanics and attack points, there's just an intensely deliberate character study here.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are thrilled to have you here with us because our mission today is to extract how mechanical game pieces, literally just cardboard rectangles with rules printed on them, can perfectly encapsulate a distinct, highly effective leadership philosophy.
Yeah, we aren't just breaking down how to win a card game here. We're breaking down how a leader manages a team, how they handle crises, and how they navigate a shifting landscape.
So the author of this document refers to the deck's identity, or its persona, as Bannock, and they frame everything we're about to discuss around one overarching quote. Leadership is knowing who to send and when.
I love that quote. It really sets the stage for a philosophy that completely rejects the whole great man theory of leadership. You know, the idea where one superstar just carries the whole team.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. Who is Bannock, really, when we look at this deck from a high-level view? Because before we can look at how he actually wins a game, we have to understand how he walks into a room and establishes a foundation. I mean, a leader is nothing without a team.
Well, the document outlines what it calls the core engine, or the backbone of the deck. And it starts with two specific cards: Marauding Captain and Command Knight.
Okay, so how do those work?
All right, so to understand the metaphor, we need to understand the mechanics. In this game, monsters have levels. A level 4 or lower monster is essentially your standard unit. It's a worker you can play from your hand without having to pay any special costs or sacrifice other cards.
So they are basically your day-to-day team members.
Precisely. And mechanically, when you play Marauding Captain, its effect allows you to special summon another level 4 or lower monster from your hand for free.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you get 2 units on the board instead of 1. But here's the critical part. While you control another warrior-type monster, the opponent cannot target Marauding Captain for an attack.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they are forced to attack the other monster.
Which, okay, initially that sounds like the captain is just hiding behind his team, but the document translates this into something entirely different.
It does.
The way the author frames it, Marauding Captain means Bannock doesn't fight alone. He creates structure instantly. Marauding Captain is like the project manager who takes all the chaotic client feedback emails directly so the engineers can actually code in peace.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, the opponent or the client in this analogy is forced to deal with the structure the manager set up, leaving the vulnerable workers completely untouched.
What's fascinating here is the synergy when you multiply that effect. Because if you play 2 Marauding Captains at the same time,
Wait, did you do that
you can, and if you do, neither of them can be attacked. They protect each other, creating what players call a soft lock on the board. The opponent simply cannot declare an attack.
Wow.
Yeah, you turn a weak hand into this incredibly coordinated, impenetrable setup just through solidarity.
But wait, I have a question about that. If these cards have low attack power, doesn't Bannock just lose if the opponent plays, like, a single massive threat before that soft lock is set up? It seems incredibly risky to just rely on weak units.
And that risk is exactly why Bannock doesn't stop at just building a wall. He plays these cards to elevate those average units,
Yeah.
which leads us directly into the second foundational card, Command Knight.
Right, the knight.
Mechanically, Command Knight gives a blanket boost to the attack power of all warrior monsters on your side of the field. And similar to the captain, as long as you control another monster, the opponent cannot attack Command Knight.
Okay, so you have the captain bringing the team onto the field and providing structural support, and then the knight empowers them. Bannock is a leader who doesn't just manage, he elevates.
Exactly.
He makes average units matter. The document frames this as Bannock telling his team, you're stronger than you think, let me prove it. Command Knight forces the opponent to deal with the entire team, not just one isolated threat.
It's pure foundation building. You aren't relying on drawing one invincible superstar card. You are building a network of mutual protection and empowerment.
It sounds like the perfect idealized version of a supportive servant leader. You build the structure, you boost the morale, everybody is safe.
It really does.
But here is where I have to push back a little bit, because as much as I love this idea of the nurturing servant leader, I read the rest of the core signature cards in this document.
Hmm.
If Bannock is all about servant leadership and protecting his team, why do his other signature cards literally involve sacrificing themselves or getting banished forever? Isn't that totally contradictory? We just talked about how he shields them, and now we're sending them into the meat grinder.
This raises an important question about the reality of leadership. It's a really common misconception that servant leadership means everyone is perfectly safe and happy all the time.
Right.
True leadership, especially in high-stakes environments, requires making brutal, hard decisions. It requires acceptable loss to protect the greater mission.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at the cards that act as Bannock's tactical toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
First is DD Warrior Lady.
Right, and we should clarify what her effect actually does. In the game, normally when a card is defeated in battle, it goes to the graveyard, which is essentially just a discard pile. And cards in the graveyard can sometimes be revived or reused later, but DD Warrior Lady has an effect where, after she battles an opponent's monster, you can choose to banish both her and the opponent's monster.
Yeah, and banished means they are removed from the game entirely.
No graveyard, no coming back.
It is the ultimate sacrifice play. But look at what it means for Bannock's leadership style. He is willing to lose something permanently to protect everything else.
Wow.
When an unavoidable crisis appears, say a massive boss monster on the opponent's side of the field that Command Knight and Marauding Captain simply cannot overpower, Bannock doesn't hesitate. He sends DD Warrior Lady.
Basically saying, if it costs me but saves the team, it's worth it.
Exactly. And we have to talk about the causality here, why this specific action matters. It answers the physical threat on the board, yes, but it also creates immense psychological pressure on the opponent.
How so?
Well, it creates psychological pressure because the opponent is suddenly terrified to play their most expensive, powerful piece. They know that no matter how big their monster is or how many resources they poured into summoning it, Bannock can just walk this tiny warrior into it and delete them both from the game.
Oh, that's brilliant. It completely neutralizes intimidation.
It really does.
And then there is Exiled Force, which is even more direct. You play the card, and its entire effect is to immediately tribute itself to destroy any monster on the field.
Right.
In the game, tributing means you voluntarily remove your own piece from the board to pay a cost. You are literally telling this unit to fall on its sword to take out an enemy threat. No battle required, just boom, gone.
Because Bannock understands that not every piece is meant to survive to the end of the project. Some roles exist purely to solve a specific problem. The sentiment the author attaches to this is, you did your job. That's enough.
It's immediate, no questions asked removal for threats that are too dangerous to even engage in battle.
It's a harsh reality of resource management. And it ties right into the last core signature card, Mystic Swordsman LV2.
Oh, right, the specialist.
Yeah, this guy's mechanic is highly specialized. He destroys face-down monsters without flipping them face-up.
For context for you listening, in this game, if an opponent sets a card face down on the board, it usually has a nasty surprise effect when you attack it and force it to flip face up. It's basically a hidden trap.
Yeah, things that generate resources for the opponent or instantly destroy your attacking monster. It's hidden information designed to punish aggression.
But Mystic Swordsman just assassinates them while they are still hidden. The document calls him the specialist. It represents Bannock's respect for hidden threats.
Exactly.
He doesn't just send his troops in blindly to trigger the trap. He sends a specialist operating on the mantra of, we don't guess, we prepare.
So if we synthesize these 5 core signature cards, the document outlines a beautiful, distinct 5-step cycle of leadership.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, you build with Marauding Captain. You establish the team structure. Second, you empower with Command Knight. You make the team stronger than the sum of its parts.
Makes sense.
Third, you protect with DD Warrior Lady, shielding the Foundation from massive, overwhelming threats. Fourth, you sacrifice with Exiled Force for the sake of the overarching mission. And fifth, you solve with Mystic Swordsman, using precision tools rather than blunt force against hidden problems.
Build, empower, protect, sacrifice, solve. That cycle makes perfect sense. But, seeing this philosophy in 5 specific cards is one thing. A leader has to manage a whole organization.
Right.
So how does this strategy actually scale to the flow of an entire 40-card deck over the course of a 20-minute duel? Because there are spell cards and trap cards in here too. It's not just monsters.
It scales through extreme intentionality. Every single card in the 40-card deck is selected to facilitate that exact 5-step cycle. The spell and trap cards aren't just random powerful effects, they are the logistical support network for the team.
I noticed that immediately when looking at the spell cards. There's a card called Reinforcement of the Army, commonly known as Arowaria.
Yeah, Sable.
It is a searcher card. You play it, and it literally lets you search your deck for any level 4 or lower warrior and add it directly to your hand. It acts as the literal toolbox. If Bannock needs a shield, he grabs the captain. If he needs an assassin, he grabs the swordsman.
And there's another spell card that just carries so much emotional weight. The Warrior Returning Alive.
Oh man, that card lets you bring a warrior back from the graveyard to your hand.
It's literal proof of the leader's ethos that no one gets left behind. Even after a unit has been spent or defeated, Bannock values them enough to pull them back into the fold.
That is so powerful.
Which brings us to how Bannock manages the flow of a project, or in this case, a duel. The document breaks down the tactical phases, showing how a leader navigates a shifting landscape.
Okay, what's the first phase?
In the early game, the goal is to establish structure. You use Arado to get the right warrior. You set up the captain of the knight. You're establishing a presence, not overwhelming pressure. You are planting your feet.
That is such crucial advice for any new leadership role. You don't walk into a new department on day one and start completely restructuring or launching massive initiatives.
Exactly.
You establish presence, you build the team, you figure out where the structural weaknesses are.
Then the mindset shifts as we move into the mid-game. This is where you adapt and lead. This is where Bannock deploys his highly specific toolbox targets. He might summon Don Zalug, a card that forces the opponent to discard cards from their hand when it deals damage, essentially disrupting the opponent's future resources.
Sneaky.
Or he deploys Azura Priest, a unique monster that can attack every single one of the opponent's monsters in a single turn. It handles swarms of little problems cleanly.
Or Blade Knight. That's a fascinating one.
Yeah, Blade Knight is great.
Blade Knight gains attack power when you have very few cards in your hand, and it negates the effects of those hidden face-down monsters if it's the only monster you control. It acts as a disciplined solo fighter.
Right.
It's the independent contractor you bring in when the rest of the team needs to step back. Every single move just feels so intentional.
And that intentionality sets up what the source material calls the turning point, the leadership moment. This is when Bannock drops a boss presence.
The big guns.
Yeah. He brings out cards like Zaborg the Thunder Monarch. When Zaborg is summoned, he instantly summons a bolt of lightning to destroy any monster on the field. It's decisive, unavoidable removal. Or he brings out Air Knight Parshath, a noble creature that inflicts damage even if the opponent is defending, and rewards you by letting you draw a new card. It creates this honorable, relentless pressure.
This is when the leader finally steps in to swing the momentum cleanly. But notice how he does it. Even during the turning point, when Bannock is being aggressive, he protects his board with trap cards.
Yes, the defense is still there.
He plays Mirror Force, a brutal trap that destroys all of the opponent's attacking monsters if they get too aggressive. Or Sakuretsu Armor, which provides clean, reliable defense against a single strike.
He never abandons the foundation he built in the early game. He secures the ground he's gained.
Leading us into the late game.
Exactly. Controlled victory. Bannock doesn't win by dropping a sudden, explosive surprise that the opponent could never see coming. He wins through consistency.
Right.
He recycles his resources with the warrior returning alive, and he simply outmaneuvers the opponent by having a steady, reliable answer for every problem.
So, what does this all mean? We've talked about the mechanics, the individual cards, the emotional weight of the spells, and the shifting phases of the game. But what is the ultimate feeling of being Bannock?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source material gives us a profound final revelation. It explicitly states that Bannock doesn't win because his deck is inherently stronger.
Which is counterintuitive for a game like this.
Right. Both players draw cards.
Yeah.
Both players have access to powerful resources.
Yeah.
But Bannock wins because he uses every card exactly how it's meant to be used.
It's the realization of, I don't need the strongest card in the game. I need the right card for this exact moment.
The feeling of Bannock is that you are never guessing. You are choosing. You don't overwhelm your opponent with brute force. You outmaneuver them with precision and care.
Yeah.
Both players draw one card per turn, but Bannock generates more value out of his one card because he understands its specific intended purpose.
And this is where it connects directly to you listening to this right now.
Yeah.
Think about your own life. Whether you are leading a corporate team, managing a household, or even just organizing your own daily tasks and personal projects, the Bannock philosophy applies.
It really does.
Ask yourself, Are you hoarding resources or software tools or even people just for their raw power or prestige? Or do you value them for the specific roles they fulfill? Are you guessing your way through problems, just hoping a superstar will swoop in and save the day?
Usually doesn't happen.
Right. Or are you choosing precise solutions, preparing for hidden threats, and empowering the people around you to do what they do best?
It's the difference between trying to win by starving your opponent of resources and winning simply by using what you are given better. That is the true heart of servant leadership.
It really is. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought inspired by the source material.
Oh, here we go.
Because if you read the actual deck list all the way to the bottom, there is a fascinating contradiction sitting right in the middle of this noble philosophy.
Ah, yes. The inclusion of the classic staples.
Yes. The text explicitly says, Bannock wins by servant leadership and not by starving others. He wins honorably.
Mhm.
Yet if you look closely at the spell cards, the deck list contains classic staple cards from that era of the game. Cards like Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, and Delinquent Duo.
For context, in the history of this game, these are some of the most ruthlessly efficient, unfair cards ever printed.
Completely broken.
Pot of Greed simply lets you draw 2 cards for free, a massive unearned resource advantage. Delinquent Duo is even more vicious.
Ugh, Duo.
Yeah, you pay a small amount of life points, and it legally forces the opponent to throw 2 cards from their hand straight into the graveyard.
It's just mean.
They are highly aggressive, oppressive tools designed to cripple the opponent before they can even play.
Imagine showing up to a negotiation, and before anyone even speaks, the opposing leader legally forces you to take 2 of your best proposals, rip them up, and throw them right in the trash. That's what Delinquent Duo feels like. It is ruthless.
Yeah, it is.
So here is the question you have to mull over long after this audio ends. If Bannock is a true servant leader who wins honorably and protects his team, how does he internally justify using tools that are inherently oppressive?
That's a great question. Are the ethics of a leader inevitably compromised by the ruthless efficiency of the staple tools they must use to survive in a competitive environment?
Yeah.
Can you be a servant leader to your own team while simultaneously deploying a delinquent duo to absolutely crush your opponent's resources?
It's a brilliant paradox. We want leadership to be clean. We want it to be purely noble, standing on a hill, waving a banner. But the reality of survival often forces a leader to wield uncomfortable tools. Real leadership is often quiet, yes. It's about putting the right people in the right places and shielding them from disaster. But sometimes, keeping your people safe means making tactical compromises that don't look very heroic at all. Something to think about the next time you find yourself having to make a hard choice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.